I want you to picture two very specific places. Just picture them in your head.
Okay.
The first one is, well, it's the kind of place you'd see on one of those inspirational posters, maybe in a dentist's office.
Right.
It's this remote cabin in a Wyoming drainage tucked way back in the Rockies. You've got the smell of sun-baked pine needles, the sound of a creek that just never stops moving, and elk moving silently through these beautiful aspen groves. It is pristine, quiet, and wildly beautiful.
That classic nature with a capital N.
Exactly.
The place we all go to find ourselves, or at least to escape our email inboxes for a few days.
Yeah, exactly. But now I want you to wipe that image completely. Just clear it.
Gone.
Picture the second place, a cramped apartment. You're on the 14th floor of a completely nameless, generic building in a massive, sprawling city.
Quite a contrast.
Right. You look out the window and you definitely don't see mountains. You see concrete, a rusted fire escape, and pigeons fighting over your crust of bread. The air doesn't smell like pine. It smells like diesel exhaust and hot asphalt.
A place where most people would say nature has basically been evicted.
Or at least paved over completely.
Paved over, yeah.
So here is the core question we are grappling with today. Can you learn the same profound lessons about the world, about belonging, and about ecology in that concrete jungle as you can in that pristine wilderness?
It really becomes a question of attention. Does the environment dictate the lesson, or does the observer?
Right. And to explore this, we are unpacking a really fascinating dual narrative text. It's called The Apprenticeship of Soil by Aldo Snylopez.
It's a heavy hitter of a book.
It really is. It tells two stories simultaneously. So narrative A follows this guy, Thomas Hendricks. He's a corporate guy who just up and leaves his city life to return to his grandfather's cabin, basically to relearn how to live.
And then you have narrative B, which follows a character named Varn Placeless. And Varn is an urban dweller. They actually describe themselves as the quote-unquote residue.
Residue, yeah.
Which is such a striking term. But Varn is actually reading Hendricks's account and writing this parallel commentary from what they call the City of No Trees.
So the mission of our deep dive today is to explore what the author calls the practice of attention. We're looking at how we connect to a place, whether we inherited it like Hendricks did, or were forced into it like Varn.
And ultimately, I think the goal is recognizing that the cabin and the apartment aren't actually as different as we think. They're really just different classrooms for the exact same subject.
So let's start with Thomas Hendricks. He's been away from this family cabin for 26 years.
A long time.
A very long time. And this isn't some weekend warrior trip where he brings a cooler of beer and hangs out. He's there for a hard reset. He walks up and the door is literally swollen shut from seasons of neglect. He has to shoulder it open.
There's a really beautiful, although slightly difficult concept introduced right at the start here. Snylopez calls it readiness. Yeah. Hendricks remembers his father telling him years ago, this place will still be there when you're ready. And Hendricks admits in the text that he had absolutely no idea what that meant at the time.
He probably thought it meant when you have enough vacation days saved up.
Right. But the author is getting at something deeply psychological here. It took Hendricks 26 years of corporate burnout, of feeling just completely disconnected from his own life, to finally understand that the land waits, but you have to actually be capable of receiving it.
You have to be present.
Exactly. You can stand in the most beautiful place on earth, but if your mind is still running spreadsheets or you're replaying an argument from work,
you aren't actually there.
You aren't. You're a ghost in the landscape.
And I love that when he finally gets inside, the book makes a massive point of stripping away the romance.
Oh yeah, it's not a Disney movie.
Not at all. There are no little singing birds helping him sweep up. It's gritty. There are mouse droppings all over the counter, a huge pack rat midden in the corner, and the whole place just smells like cold, stale pine. He sets his heavy pack down on these Douglas fir planks that his grandfather actually laid by hand back in 1952.
That floor is crucial. It grounds him in history. And that's where we find the central artifact of this whole story, the grandfather's notebook.
Right.
Harold Hendricks kept this journal starting in 1952. But the interesting thing is, it wasn't a diary of feelings. He wasn't sitting there writing about his dreams or his anxieties or who he was mad at. It was strict, pure observation.
Give us an example of that. What kind of stuff are we talking about?
It's incredibly dry on the surface. You'll read entries like October 4th. Wind northeast, first snow on the ridge, elk moving down to the willow breaks.
Wow.
That's it. Just witnessing. No commentary at all.
It sounds almost boring, honestly. Like a ship's logbook.
to a modern reader who is hooked on constant stimulation? Maybe. But Hendricks picks up this notebook, he sees the very last entry from decades ago, and he decides he's going to continue the thread. But then
He realizes he can't.
he realizes almost immediately that he doesn't know how to see anymore. His brain isn't wired for it. He talks about undergoing his apprenticeship of presence, and his first teacher isn't even a person.
It's the aspen grove out back.
Yes, the aspens.
This is where the text gets surprisingly technical about botany, which I actually really loved. Because to the casual eye, an aspen grove just looks like a bunch of individual white trees standing next to each other.
Right, but that's an illusion. Snilope is using this to dive into the biology of clonal colonies. Populus tremuloids, the quaking aspen, it actually grows from a single root system.
So they're all connected underground?
They're the exact same organism. The grove is a single living being that can live for thousands of years. The individual trunks you see, they're just shoots.
That is wild.
And Hendricks has this incredible realization that the trees aren't nouns, they are verbs, they are events happening to the landscape. And when he sits there long enough, and we're talking hours of absolute stillness here, the boundary between him, the observer, and the trees, the observed, it starts to just dissolve.
He literally calls it dissolving the boundary.
Yeah.
But the real quote-unquote shock of recognition, and that is a phrase the author specifically uses, it comes with the elk.
The yearling.
Yeah. He's watching this herd, and there's this yearling, a young elk, and for a split second, they lock eyes.
That moment is so pivotal in environmental philosophy. It brings up the concept of the imwelt,
The self-world.
right? The self-world. Usually humans look at animals like scenery, like they're just furniture of the landscape. We watch them on TV. They are objects for entertainment. But when that animal looks back at you,
Suddenly you are the scenery.
exactly, you are being observed. It raises that really haunting question, are we alone in consciousness? Hendricks feels that spark of communication across the species barrier. He realizes, maybe for the first time in his life, that he is just another animal sitting in the woods.
It's such a heavy realization. You aren't the protagonist of the movie anymore. You're just another character in the scene.
It completely humbles you.
So Hendricks is having these profound, life-altering realizations at a place that is undeniably beautiful. And honestly, it's easy to have an epiphany when you're looking at a majestic elk in a sunlit meadow.
Sure.
But then the text pivots. Sharply. We leave the pristine mountains and drop right onto the 14th floor with Varn placeless.
And this is where the book really shines for me. Varn is such a compelling counterweight to Hendricks.
So different.
Completely different. Varn is reading Hendricks' words about returning to the land and feels this really complicated mix of kinship but also deep resentment. Because Varn has no cabin. Varn is the descendant of refugees whose village was completely destroyed.
There is no home to return to.
Then
Varn calls themselves the residue. That's just such a harsh term to use for yourself.
it gets harsh. It implies being left behind, right? Like you're just the byproduct of industrialization or conflict. Varn lives in the city of no trees. So if Hendricks is undergoing an apprenticeship of presence, Varn calls their own journey the apprenticeship of absence.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning Varn has to learn from what is missing, while Hendricks learns from the abundance of the land, the elk, the fresh water, the massive trees. Varn is learning from the holes in the fabric of the world. The silence where birds should be singing, the smell of trash where pine air should be. It's a much, much harder curriculum.
But Varn doesn't just wallow in it. This isn't some misery memoir.
Not at all.
There's this incredible story about the fire escape garden. Varn basically inherits these 4 dying tomato plants from a neighbor down on the 9th floor who passed away.
And this creates such a beautiful parallel in the text. Hendricks connects to his grandfather through the physical cabin. Varn connects to this deceased neighbor through the tomatoes. Varn has this realization. A tomato is a chain of hands.
I highlighted that exact line. A tomato is a chain of hands. Let's unpack that a bit.
It's incredibly powerful when you think about it. Someone had to plant the seed. Someone tended it, harvested the fruit, saved the seed, and passed it on.
Over and over?
For generations.
Yeah.
And now Varn is keeping that exact same chain alive on a rusted metal fire escape. It's a tenuous connection, sure, but it's real.
Yeah.
It anchors Varn in time just as much the old cabin anchors Hendricks. It turns the tomato from a cheap grocery store item into a relationship.
And Varn starts applying that practice of attention to the city itself. There's this empty lot nearby. Varn calls it a negative commons, and instead of just seeing it as a trash dump, Varn starts cataloging the weeds. And I have to admit, I usually think of weeds as just trash plants, things you spray and kill.
Most of us do, yeah. But this is where the biology of the city becomes fascinating. Varn starts identifying the pioneer species. Snilopez breaks them down so beautifully. First, you have the dandelion.
The classic enemy of the American suburban lawn.
Right, the ultimate enemy. But Varn sees it as a teacher of persistence. It has that deep taproot that breaks up heavily compacted soil, bringing essential nutrients back to the surface.
It's healing the ground.
Exactly. Then you have plantain, which teaches adaptation. It actually grows in soil so hard and trampled that absolutely nothing else can live there. Then lamb's quarters, which teaches humility.
And the Atlantis tree.
The tree of heaven, or sometimes called the ghetto palm. You can grow out of a straight concrete crack. It teaches survival at any cost. Varn has this major aha moment, realizing that the city is an ecosystem. It's not a dead zone. The pigeons are the urban equivalent of Hendricks elk. The rats fill the ecological niche of the coyotes.
That's a shift.
The wildness is still there.
Definitely.
It's just harder to love.
That's the real challenge, isn't it? Loving the rat as much as the elk, or at least acknowledging it has a valid right to be there.
Or just respecting its sheer tenacity. It's surviving in a deeply hostile environment, just like Varn is.
You know, there is a specific activity in the book that really ties these two completely disparate lives together. And it's the physical act of carrying water.
Oh, this is one of the strongest, most visceral images in the entire text.
For Hendricks, carrying water is this romantic, rugged discipline. He walks a quarter-mile down to a spring, fills 2 5-gallon buckets, and hauls them back up a really slippery slope. He says it, quote-unquote, concentrates the mind. You can't daydream or worry about your email when you're carrying 80 pounds of water on a muddy mountain trail.
Right. It forces absolute presence. It quiets what neuroscientists call the default mode network of the brain, that part of us that constantly ruminates and worries about the past or the future.
It shuts that right down.
It has to. It brings you immediately into the physical body, because if you lose focus for even a second, you slip and you lose your water.
But then look at Varn. Varn also carries water. But it's not romantic in the slightest. It's because the plumbing in the apartment building has completely failed. Varn literally has to walk to a tap at the far end of the hall just to fill buckets for the apartment.
It's a chore. It's a symptom of urban poverty and infrastructure failure. It is absolutely not a choice.
So the contrast is so stark here. For Hendricks, it's a spiritual ritual connecting him to the earth and his ancestors. For Varn, it's just annoying and exhausting.
It is, but here is the synthesis the author makes, and I think it's brilliant. The weight is the same.
Gravity doesn't care.
Gravity does not care about your socioeconomic status or your poetic motivation. The concentration required to not spill the water is exactly the same. The practice of attention unifies them. The body learns the same discipline, whether the water comes from a pristine mountain spring or a rusted tap in a dingy hallway.
That's a really powerful idea, that the discipline transcends the circumstance. You can find that meditative state even in the absolute drudgery of poverty or inconvenience.
Exactly. Attention is a democratizing force. You don't need expensive outdoor gear to pay attention.
Yeah.
You just need to be there.
Speaking of transcending, both of these characters eventually move from this solitary, inward struggle into something resembling community. They stop being these lone wolves.
They move from the watcher to the network.
Yeah. Hendricks meets Elena, a climate researcher, and she basically recruits him. She comes out and says, "We need your data." So he starts using modern digital sensors right alongside his grandfather's old paper notebook.
And this introduces the concept of institutional memory versus ecological memory. Hendricks isn't just a random guy hiding in the woods anymore. He becomes part of a collective intelligence.
There are, 43 sites?
43 sites across the Rockies,
Yeah.
monitoring climate change, and he is one crucial node in that network. His solitude actually becomes data. It becomes useful for the future.
And Varn does something really similar, but on a micro scale. Varn befriends a 10-year-old boy in the building named Omar.
And Varn teaches Omar how to see. This is the pedagogy of the wild applied directly to the inner city. They go to that empty lot, and Varn shows Omar the wild right there in the concrete cracks. Omar ends up creating a map of the neighborhood, but it's not, a Google map showing restaurants and coffee shops.
No, he's marking where the sparrow's nest, where the moss grows on the north side of the brick, where the water pools after a heavy rain.
It's a map of life.
It's the passing of the torch. Just as Hendricks passes the thread to the researcher Elena, and later to a woman named Sarah, Varn passes the thread to Omar. The thread of attention branches out. It's not just about you anymore. It's about who comes next.
Which naturally brings us to the inevitable climax of the source material. You really can't talk about ecology or life, really, without talking about destruction. And Snylopez doesn't pull any punches here at all.
No, he doesn't. In year 15 of Hendrix's time in the drainage, a massive wildfire sweeps through. And this isn't some Hollywood save the cat moment where the hero puts it out with a shovel and a garden hose. The cabin is completely destroyed. The aspen grove, that single ancient living organism we talked about, is burned straight to the ground.
It's a total loss. Hendrix barely evacuates in time. He grabs the notebooks, the hard drives, and those tomato seeds.
Which he got from Sarah.
Right. The seeds made their way to him via Sarah, who visited from the city, creating this amazing physical link between Varn's urban world and his mountain world.
But the cabin itself, the thing he spent 15 years maintaining, the actual floor his grandfather laid with his own hands, it's just ash.
And simultaneously, over in the other narrative, Varn watches a warehouse burn down in the city. And almost immediately after the Emperor's Cool, there's a sign up, future site of luxury condominiums.
Classic gentrification, the immediate erasure of history.
But Varn notices something else entirely. Varn notices the pioneer weeds emerging from the toxic debris almost immediately. The wild persists.
What I found most interesting about this whole section, and honestly the hardest part for me to swallow, is Hendrix's reaction, because he doesn't rebuild the cabin.
No, he doesn't. And that's the critical lesson of his entire arc. He moves to a nearby town, but he continues the observations. He realizes that the drainage itself isn't gone. It's just transforming. If he only loved the cabin, the physical object, he would be completely broken. But he loved the process of the ecosystem.
That is a really tough distinction to make in real life. Loving the process versus loving the object. We all get so attached to the things. The house, the specific view out the window, the favorite tree in the yard.
But it's the only way to survive loss. This is what environmentalists call solastalgia.
Solastalgia.
Yeah, it's the distress caused by environmental change or destruction of your home environment. Hendrix cures his solastalgia by accepting that fire is also an event. It's a verb. It's part of the natural cycle. The thread, that practice of attention we keep talking about, it survives the destruction of the physical object.
So the notebook is ultimately more important than the roof.
Precisely. The record of the life is more durable than the shelter.
The narrative culminates in this really surreal dream sequence in chapter 40. It's the only time the two worlds actually touch. Varn dreams of meeting Hendrix in this sort of nowhere place between the mountains and the city.
It serves as a profound validation. They exchange tools in the dream. Hendrix hands over the old weathered notebook. Varn hands over the hand-drawn map of the city and the saved tomato seeds.
It confirms that despite the vast difference in privilege and geography, they are doing the exact same work. They are both vital witnesses to their world.
And the epilogue wraps this all up beautifully in a library in Laramie, Wyoming.
I loved this ending.
A librarian finds two notebooks sitting on a shelf. One is leather-bound, that's Hendrix. The other is a cheap, beat-up drugstore composition book. Varn's, or perhaps it's Omar's, she just files them together under long-term environmental observations.
Side by side.
Side by side. Because attention is attention no matter where it happens. The library system acknowledges what society often forgets, that the observation of a city weed pushing through concrete is just as scientifically and spiritually valid as the observation of a mountain pine.
So let's unpack this for a second. What does this all mean for us, the readers? The source ends with this idea of the land ethic, but it completely reframes it.
Right. Usually when we hear the term land ethic, which was a term coined by Aldo Leopold originally, we think of it as a strict rule, like don't pollute or protect the designated wilderness.
Yeah.
But Hendrix defines it as a practice. It's the daily discipline of staying in one place long enough to actually learn its ways.
To know what the wind does in November.
Yes. To know exactly when the specific birds come back in the spring.
And the real kicker here is you don't need the cabin.
You absolutely do not need the cabin. That is the trap of romanticizing nature. We all think we need the perfect setting, the $500 a night Airbnb out in the woods, the expensive hiking gear just to be quote-unquote connected. But the source argues that you can start with a windowsill. You can start with a crack in the sidewalk outside your apartment. The wild isn't a destination you travel to. It's a quality of attention that you bring to exactly where you already are.
Varn's story proves that perfectly. You can carry the water from the tap, you can track the pigeons. It's about the fidelity of the witnessing. It's just about showing up.
And it's about passing it on, whether it's to a massive climate monitoring network or just a 10-year-old kid in your hallway. If you break the thread, the knowledge dies with you. But if you pass it on, the place and the love for that place survives everything, even fire.
It really makes you look at your own neighborhood differently. I'm thinking about this weird patch of weeds behind my garage right now. I've been meaning to spray it, honestly. It's been bugging me for weeks.
Don't spray it yet.
I won't.
Just look at it. That's your drainage. That's your empty lot. What's actually growing there, who lived there under the leaves. That's where the work begins. Just sit with it for 10 minutes tomorrow.
So, here's the challenge for you listening right now. If the thread consists of paying attention and passing it on, what is the specific thing in your immediate environment right now? Literally look up from whatever you're doing. What is waiting for you to notice it?
It might be a tree outside your window. It might be a tiny spider web in the corner of your office ceiling. It might just be the way the afternoon light hits the brick building across the street.
Whatever it is, notice it. Write it down. Go find your thread.
And keep watching.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We'll see you next time.